beautiful day to have a podcast sitting side by side here with my man, Sean Fagan. We were here on time, though we walked into the wrong room, per se.
Yeah, it happens. I mean, even though we've been doing this for a while, we still manage to have these technical difficulties every now and then. But yeah, we just had like a little warm up, I guess, before we get into the real podcast right here, right now. And yeah, I'm really excited about this topic because, like I was saying, it's just so many parallels to Muay Thai in life and becoming a champion in Muay Thai and becoming a champion of life. And I think a lot of people will kind of resonate with a lot of the things that we'll be discussing because a lot of people use Muay Thai as a tool to better themselves. I know me and you do. And so if we're able to use the same types of like mental training tactics and develop the same habits and attributes as a fighter as we can as a human, it's going to pay off in the long run, and you're just going to feel that much more accomplished, that much more developed as a human.
Yeah, I think a lot of these things, kind of how I said it in the last stream, is something that I've watched develop over the years inside yourself, inside myself. I've always been really good at keeping routine when it comes to the physical, but when it comes to the mental and from the business side, like sitting in front of the computer and having to come up with creative ideas and doing that on a consistent basis has always been difficult to me when it comes to discipline. And I feel like for others, it may be flipped around. Like a lot of people have a hard time keeping discipline when it comes to the physical part or getting to the gym while they're working all day. So I think this can apply to either one. Like one definitely helps the other. And I feel like over the years with practice, repetition, and some of the principles that we're going to go over, I feel like I've actually gotten better at working, if that makes sense. Do you feel like you've gotten better at like just doing work?
Yeah, I feel like it's all encompassing, right? If you become more disciplined with your training, you'll probably be more disciplined with your work and with other aspects of your life. If you become more objective and be able to take a step back and assess yourself as a fighter and as a martial artist and see where your weaknesses are, where your strengths are, then chances are you'll be able to do that same thing as a businessman, as a husband, as whoever, whatever roles that you play in your life. And so I think that like there's so many things that translate from one aspect to another. And that's why I'm such a big proponent of using Muay Thai as a way to develop your character, develop your habits, develop every aspect of your life. Because if you can become a champion of life, I mean, that's ultimately what we're trying to do. Yeah, Paul and I are trying to actually become Muay Thai champions, but we're just trying to win at life. We're just trying to be the best we can with life. And I think a lot of that comes down to being able to utilize the same tools and tactics that we use as fighters in the day-to-day life. And it can really go overlooked. And so that's why we're doing this podcast. That's why we want to share some of the things that we feel like have benefited us in our training that have translated directly to our work, directly to our relationships, directly to all other aspects of our lives.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of just having an opinion on things, especially if I don't have a lot of experience in them, like politics and a lot of the things that are on social media right now. So that's why I don't often dive into them. But when it comes to this, traveling across the different coasts of the US and all around the States and all around the world, and here in Thailand, meeting people from all types of nations and seeing people that are not only champions in Muay Thai, but champion fathers, champion entrepreneurs like yourself, you start to find out specific habits that they have and character traits in their personalities and what they do day to day that has led them to that place where it's not an accident. And the same thing goes for the flip side, where you see people that just can't get things going. Like, man, like he seems on social media or wherever you saw this person that, they're doing the right things, but then you meet them in person and then you see day to day their habits and you start to figure out like why things aren't popping off for them. So hopefully we can cover the exact things that make the difference here today.
There we go. So we'll just jump right into it. And the first most important thing, which I can really like fall behind, is the idea of having a really good morning ritual. And the morning routine is so key for me. I don't know if it's the same for you, and I'll be interested to hear what your routine is like in Phuket right now. But for me, if I don't go through my morning routine, I do not have nearly as good of a day. Do I still have good days? Yeah, of course. I could still, like, just because you have a bad morning doesn't mean you should just throw out the entire rest of the day. Just because you have the bad first round doesn't mean you should just cash in the next 4 rounds. You know what I mean? But if you have a good first round, chances are the rest of the fight is going to go in your favor as well. And the first round is kind of a warm-up round in Muay Thai, right? And that's the same idea as like a morning ritual. And so for me, if I don't have that warm-up round where I'm doing the Y crew, where I'm getting my mind right, where I'm shadow boxing, getting Thai liniment oil on, then I'm not as mentally prepared. I'm not as physically prepared for the day. And then I see that kind of translate into the results of the day as well.
Yeah, just as you were saying that, it's almost like, when you're at the tournaments and you feel like you have like 2 hours to go. I feel like waking up with an alarm clock like 10 minutes before you have to get to training or before you have to get to work is like waking up and then they're like, and go. Like you didn't get the shadow box, your muscles are stiff, your mind is kind of foggy still from waking up. But when I have like 2 hours, I've actually started doing this because I feel like I need to get food in. And if I wake up and I eat and I go straight to the gym, for sure going to throw up. They started implementing more pad rounds and bag rounds in the morning now. We used to do more like HIIT training style. So I felt like I can keep that going. But since I need a little bit more nutrition now, we do 5 rounds of pads, 8 rounds on the bag, and sparring or clinching both sessions, morning and night, now that there's more fighters here. So we just end up doing more rounds. And I feel like I need more nutrition. So I'm up around 6 is the latest. I really try to aim for like 5 o'clock in the morning to check some things off, because exactly what you said is you wake up and once you feel like you accomplished something before you even get your day started and you check a few things off the to-do list, it's so much easier to check off the rest versus being frustrated with yourself and like trying to get the wheels under you. Like things are happening to you rather than you checking these things off the list.
Yeah, it's funny. Like whenever I don't have the most ideal day, when I don't check off all the things that I want to check off, I'm at the end of the day, I'm in bed with Liz. I'm like, damn, like, all right, tomorrow I need to do my morning routine. I need to do this, because if I don't do this, and I can't tell you how many times I fucking have said this to her when after I have like a lackluster day, it's like, yo, I need to do my morning routine, because that's like at the foundation of me having a good day. When I do my morning routine, I'll just kind of give a quick breakdown of what I do. I've read like maybe not all the books on morning routines, but I read a decent amount of books on just being able to structure your day, having a good morning routine. One book is called The 5 a.m. Club. Also read The Miracle Morning, and then Own Your Day by Aubrey Marcus as well. I think Morning Miracles by Hal Elrod and 5 a.m. Club is by Robin Schwarma. And all of those have some really useful tips and like practical tactics that you can actually implement. What I was able to take from it is that I like in the 5 a.m. Club, he talks about the simple concept of this 20-20-20 kind of split. And there's 20 minutes of movement, 20 movements of mindfulness, and 20 movements of like growth, self-growth of some sort. So every morning I make sure I at least have 20-20-20. Now, I ideally have 2 hours similar to you, but I've recently been just trying to focus on this hour. And if I have this hour, then the next hour is that much more productive. And typically I go into writing or something more like a creative type of flow. But my first 20 minutes, the first thing I do, well, first off, I actually wrote an email about this to my list recently, is that like people ask me like, how do you actually get up in the morning? Like, how do you not hit the snooze alarm and do all this kind of shit? I don't have my snooze alarm nearby. Like I have to get up out of my bed and walk like across my house in order to turn my alarm clock off. And then I have a second alarm clock on the other side that I have to walk to and turn off. And so by the time I turn off 2 alarms that make me get out of bed and like walk around and like see that life is existing right now, I'm not going to go back to bed unless less like, I don't know. Like it really takes a lot for me to go back to bed after I've woken up and turn off 2 alarms. And so
some people are going to say that their wife is going to hate them if they do this.
Well, think about the pros and cons, right? So if your wife hates you for doing that, does she, do you have any other problems going on? And does that stem from your lack of awareness or your lack of taking care of yourself in any form, right? If you're not waking up and taking care of yourself in the morning, that's like my self-care time. It's like I make sure that I get my workout in. I make sure I get my meditation, my stillness in. I make sure I get my study in as well. And so, yeah, like Liz, it bothers Liz a little bit. Usually she wakes up shortly after I do and everything. But like, it's pros and cons. Like if it pisses off your wife, I'm sorry, but like you got to do what you got to do. And like I got to wake up early. Otherwise, I'm not happy. Otherwise, I'm not productive. And then that just translates into me being more of a dick for the rest of the day. So I make sure I get up and make sure you just turn off the fucking alarms. Like as long as you turn off the alarms, then it's all good, right? So I do that to make sure I have a guaranteed wake up. And then I also the night before prepare my running clothes, which isn't really much. It's just shorts, socks, and a shirt. And I make sure I have that out. So after I turn my alarm off, I immediately put those on. Then I also have a sticky note on my alarm that usually has something I wrote the night before. It's like, don't be a bitch, or like go fucking murder this day, or some type of motivational thing that I would talk to myself. So I read that after turning off my alarm. So that's another way that I make sure I don't go back to bed. Then I go for a run. I usually do like between a 3 and 5K, depending on the day. And then after that, I come back, I do a little stretching mobility routine, drink a big glass of water, jump in the shower, do all that kind of stuff. And then I meditate for 15 minutes. I do a 5 by 5 type of meditation. I do 5 minutes of box breathing. That's when you breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, and then hold for 4. And you just keep cycling through that. The Marines and a lot of military personnel are trained in that. And so I figure if they're doing that, that's probably a good thing to get used to for slowing your heart rate down and becoming more aware of your breathing. Then I do 5 minutes of a mantra. It depends on the day, depends on the week, but I usually change my mantras. And then I do 5 minutes of either visualizing the day or visualizing my like big vision, and like getting into real detail of what I want my goals to be in 5 years, or what I want to accomplish in 5 years. Then after that, I study Thai for 15 to 20 minutes. And then boom, I'm like, all right, that's like a great morning. I feel fucking good. I've like nourished myself physically, mentally, and like spiritually all in the morning. And now I can go and attack the day. What's your morning routine? Is like, it does have like the same type of concepts in it, and do you have like a structure to it, or do you go more with the flow?
You're definitely a lot more detailed when it comes to and I think you have better intention than I do. I wake up, this is pretty much mine, and then we can kind of contrast them and compare them, because I wake up and then Mia laughs at me because I have a alarm set for like a random minute after the first alarm. It's usually like 4 or 7 minutes, and she's like, why don't you just do like 10? Or like, why not a nice round number? And it's because if I wake up to the first one and I have like a 10-15 minute snooze or something, I feel like I get back into a deep sleep, and it's like waking up all over again. But that second one, if it's only like a couple minutes later, I feel like it kind of bugs me, annoys me, and then it forces me to get up. So kind of like your sticky note, that's like, don't be a bitch. That second alarm is almost like that, don't be a bitch. And I make it a more annoying alarm sound as well.
Nice.
Like the first one's like really cozy, you know, it's like real nice,
like
music.
Waking up. Nah.
Yeah, and then the second one's like,
wake the fuck up.
yes. Exactly. And then I get up and I read. I've been reading a ton. I read fiction before I go to bed, because so I feel like a morning routine starts well the night before. Right?
Oh, for sure. For sure.
And I stopped drinking caffeine past pretty much like 3 o'clock, and I feel like that's helped me fall asleep earlier. I try to get to bed. Last night was a late night because I was writing some emails and doing like a little promo. But usually I try to get to bed around 9 o'clock now. And it starts the night before. I try to have melatonin or some tea and not eat like too heavy fried stuff right before bed. So we have meal prep here. So like a lighter meal, making sure that I'm getting to bed reading fiction because it keeps my mind off all these tasks and goals. We talk about this is like, like you said, like you lay down, if you didn't check off your to-do list, then all of a sudden that compounding effect works against you. It's like you didn't do it, then you're thinking about it. You have anxiety going to bed. You can't fall asleep. You're already losing sleep. You're thinking about waking up in the morning, getting things done. On less sleep, you're less efficient. So we do the complete opposite. I read fiction so I can get to bed and not think about any of these goals and tasks, which used to keep me up.
Mhm.
Then I wake up and then I read. And that's when I read nonfiction. I read nonfiction in the morning to almost inspire myself. I feel like if I can take away like a little quote that really resonates with me in the morning, it like really pushes my momentum forward, like something new that I learned, because I get excited to implement it into my day. Like whether it's philosophy or it's an actual book like the morning routine that you're talking
Mhm.
about. Like I want to implement these things, these habits. And then I get into either moving around or into work. So I choose to either stretch, which I'm going to be doing more now because I'm in training camp. But if I'm more focused on work, then I get into getting on the computer and starting to check things off without checking social media. I feel like that just puts you in like this whirlwind, where
Mhm.
like again you're not checking things off. And then as I'm doing this, I'm having my coffee. It's like it has to be part of my routine. I just enjoy the taste, and I have protein oatmeal to just get things going, and I have more energy for that morning session. And I get there early and get to work.
Boom. That sounds like a good morning routine as well. And I think a lot of it just comes down to trial and error too. Like some things that I used to do, I don't do anymore. And I adjust my morning routine every so often, depending if I feel like if it's getting a little stale. Some people are just like, no, you do one morning routine, that's how you stick to it. And that works for some people, but I'm more of a, I'll do something for like seasons. So like I'll have like 3 months of like this routine. And then if I'm training to fight, my routine will be a little bit different than if I'm focusing on work and yada yada yada.
Yeah, one thing I want to say about what you were discussing in how detailed you are in like envisioning the whole process and envisioning your day and envisioning like where you're going to be 5 years from now. It sounds like a lot of work. But as I was listening to you, I was thinking like the type of compounding effect that has on its own over the days, weeks, and months, just kind of embedding these thoughts in your head and almost like set reminders that this is what you're focused on. This is your goal. I feel like a lot of people get really excited about things initially and they ride on that momentum of excitement. But
Mhm.
once it fades away after like 3 days, 4 days, then that idea and the whole goal kind of tends to fade away. And you see that happen to people all the time, especially when we talk about the physical, the people that come to the camps and they're going hard the first 3 days, they're running on excitement. That's their fuel, and then once that fuel runs out and they have to run on discipline, things change.
Yeah, it's definitely key to, yeah, just pushing through some things that you don't want to do and building that discipline is really important. And I think why I do that in the morning, why I make sure I visualize and connect with my vision is so I can stay excited about it. Because if I'm not excited, then the discipline is that much harder to do. But if I'm meditating for 5 minutes on like where I want to be in 5 years, and if I'm doing these mantras where I'm just like pumping myself up, then I'm that much more excited about actually doing certain things during the day that I might not be excited about otherwise. And so like, yeah, and I have a vision board right here. I have a bunch of pictures on my wall right here that kind of keep me in the realm of what I'm trying to accomplish. And I'm always in this energy. And so this way, whenever I'm out of the energy, I make sure it's like almost intentional that I'm out of the energy and that I'm more just like turning off, not worrying about things. But here, I'm in my office. I got my fight poster behind me. I got my vision board behind me. I got all these goals and everything on my whiteboard and everything. So when I'm in here, I'm inundated by it. And that's the same thing I try to do every morning and every night is I kind of just like I open the loop and then I close the loop, right? So my evening routine is I'm typically still connecting to my vision and everything. I usually only do like 5 minutes of meditation. at night. My evening routine is so much less structured and I guess easier than nighttime, but I essentially just write out my day. I meditate for 5 minutes and that's it. And if I do that, then I'm able to kind of turn off, and now I could go read, I can go relax. But if I don't have that turn off, then my mind is constantly just racing and racing and racing. And so I think it's important to have this like on and off. And I've been kind of, it's been an experiment my entire career. I'm still like figuring out. I don't have this down like pat by any means, but it's fun to figure out, you know. And that's kind of like the way I look at Muay Thai. It's like it's fun to figure out your fighting style and like how to change certain things to be more efficient and be that much more of a better fighter. I'm trying to do that as like a human too. I'm trying to use everything I've learned in Muay Thai on how to become a better fighter, to also become a better human. And that's the whole concept of this podcast episode. Is just like we're trying to become a champion of life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you walk into the gym and certain days you feel like, why am I even here? Why am I doing this in the first place? And because you're having a bad day. Like on the good days, it's really easy to answer that question because you're getting better and you feel good, and you enjoy the endorphin rush that you get from it. But on the days you feel bad, why do you want to keep like that's us as humans. We have fear and we drive ourselves away from the things that make us not feel good, right? We want to run towards comfort. So whenever something really challenges that, we start to ask that question. And I feel like that's why we need to focus on the objective. And that's number two. And that kind of goes in both senses of the word objective, meaning the ultimate objective, the thing that you were talking about, sitting down each morning and thinking about what your ultimate goal is, whether it's a month from now or 5 years from now. It's a goal that of a project, of a fight, of where you want to get to, let's say as a father, things you want to establish for your family. And then also the objective, meaning when you become emotional. I feel like a lot of creative things can be driven from emotion. I know for myself, when I'm like really touched by things, or I'm really challenged and I feel a little bit emotional myself, I feel like I come up with the best ways of phrasing things or coming up with ideas. But when it comes to work over the years, the thing that's going to get me to that goal is thinking objectively and making those action steps happen rather than becoming emotional and almost freezing in fear.
Yeah, it's easy to freeze in fear, you know, because if you don't have like, you could have this big ambitious goal, but if you're not able to kind of objectively look at it and break it down in a way where it's more manageable, it can just overwhelm you with this fear of like, oh my God, I can't do this. There's too much to do. I have too much out of my control in order to actually make this goal happen. And that's why I think it's so important. Like I'm a huge fan of reverse engineering shit. And so like talk about my 5-year vision, right? I reverse engineer that shit. Like it's not like I'm just like hoping to get there. Like I have a roadmap and milestones on how I'm going to get there. And I think we're coming around New Year's right now. It is the perfect time to set a year goal and like make it an ambitious goal, make it a tough goal. And then reverse engineer, like what do you have to do every quarter in order to accomplish this goal by the end of the year? And then every quarter, every breakdown every month, like what do you have to do every month in order to accomplish what you want to accomplish that quarter? And then every month you do every week, right? And so you break down every week and what you got to do every week to accomplish that month's goal. And then you just get granular, man. And like, is this easy? No. Does it take time? Yes. But it's something that people don't often do and they overlook. And by overlooking this kind of stuff, you can just get caught spinning your wheels, doing the same shit, bang your head against the wall, trying to reach these goals, but not having an actual game plan to do it. You have to create a war map. You have to like create a strategy of some sort. Like sometimes you can go, like I've been going, I'm using an analogy, right? So fighting, right? A lot of the times I'll go into fights without a game plan. I just go in knowing that what I'm going to do. But a lot of times I go in with game plans too. And there's pros and cons to both of them. But when I'm going into a game plan or to a fight without a game plan, I still have the foundation of everything I'm working on. And that was built off of reverse engineering how I want to be as a fighter and how I want to be able to approach my fighting style. If I didn't have that foundation of reverse engineering how I wanted to be as a fighter, then I couldn't go into a fight just flowing and not thinking about what to do. If I was just that much more, just go with the flow and didn't set any foundation before, and I didn't have like an actual game plan on how to improve, then I'm going to have much more anxiety leading into a fight. I'm going to have less confidence going to a fight. And so same applies to life. Like if you're able to actually, I'm a visual learner. I've learned that I'm a visual learner, and I need to do things in order to like learn. But like in order to see where I'm going in 5 years, I need to like see that. And so I have whiteboards like all over my house. I have all these like images all over the house, and I'm able to actually see the roadmap and the milestones I need in order to get there. And so I think it's really important for people who are actually trying to do things, right? You're trying to accomplish things. You're trying to set goals. Is like you have to reverse engineer. You have to take the time to do that. And one thing I would recommend too is my friend Nee from the Sports Motivation Podcast. Every year he comes out with like Dominate 2021 podcast. And what it is, it's like, at least last year what he did, it was like a 3-hour podcast where he walks you through like systematically with like music in the backdrop and like just really getting you like emotionally attached to your goals and like how to do that. But he walks you through on how to set the goals and then how to reverse engineer and create an actual master plan to attack them. And yeah, it's like 3 hours long. And yeah, like I said, it takes time, it takes effort, but that time and effort is going to make it so much easier for you to actually follow through with it and accomplish things in the long run.
Yeah, and looking at it from the principle of objectivity in the other sense, where it comes from not looking at it emotionally, I was thinking about this when looking at Eddie and the gym here. And if you're an owner of a gym and you have to deal with a lot of different personalities, different people, and how you do that, you just simply have to stay objective. Whenever you look at someone that's in a leadership position, whenever you see someone that's higher up and has more responsibilities, there's these little things that can definitely get to you. And I feel like the people that reach these leadership positions are the ones that are able to deal with that really well and be more objective of like looking at the whole picture. Because there's trainers that are here as like the core trainers. They've stayed the entire time. And then there's ones that kind of come in and out, whether it's because they're lazy. One comes in smelling like, alcohol. One comes in and the other day he was being threatened because the other gym that he used to work at said he's not allowed to teach there, even though they're not offering him a job. So now they're trying to be essentially, like pettiness and taking someone's income away because of pettiness, right? And all these things can get to you, and it can be overwhelming because you're trying to deal with the people that work for you, then you're trying to deal with the fighters. And the same thing comes for us. Even if you're more of an individual and you work for yourself or you're a fighter, you have to deal with your trainer, your training partners that you're sparring with, depending on them. And if you're emotional about them showing up or how they're showing up for you. And the same thing with your partners at home and your family life, all these things. I think staying objective and like to what your actual goal is, I feel like has helped me over the years, just stay consistent and not get derailed. Because I see people get derailed like, oh, I didn't show up for training today. Just, man, I had a really hard day with work or with my wife or with this. And like, I've definitely had those days, but that I feel like those things are just completely separate in my life. Like one doesn't stop me from doing the other.
Yeah, that kind of transitions beautifully into the next tip, I guess you could say, is that just stay in the course. Because a lot of people will have these hardships come up. They will have these personal issues come out inside and outside the gym. And whether it's injuries, whether it's family issues, whatever it is, and that can completely derail people. And then you won't hear from them or see them training or improving themselves in whatever aspect that they're trying to actually do. And it's easy. I mean, like, especially 2020, life has been different. Life has been tough, and there's going to be a lot of hardships in one form or another, whether it's financially or with relationships or not being able to make it to the gym and train. But it's the people, if you want to be a champion, right? If you want to be a champion of life, you've got to, like Paul said, just kind of separate the two. They're different. My training is different than my relationship with my family and my friends. My training is different than everything. I make sure that's like my sanctuary in a way, you know? And as long as I'm doing that, I'm staying sane for the most part. And that's why it's really important to make sure that you're always taking care of yourself. That's kind of what it comes down to a lot of the times, is like, in order to really do good, you need to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. You're doing that, those practices where you're nourishing yourself, physically, mentally, spiritually. And this way you're going to be able to deal with these hardships when they come up, deal with these obstacles when they just fucking come out of nowhere, when coronavirus hits the world and everything, and you have to figure out a way to move forward in a productive manner. But most people end up stopping and going and stopping and going. And we're going back to the idea of the compound effect and just staying consistent, just that 1% better each and every day. And if you're able to do that and not break the chain and just keep that moving forward, it's going to pay dividends in the long run, no doubt.
My first ever trainer when it came to physical training, when I was going to college for health and exercise science and getting my degree and my certification, his name was Justin, and he was just a big shredded dude. I would go in to just help him with pads, and in return he actually brought me into his gym. He had a personal studio that he let me shadow at, and all his shirts said STMFC. And everyone would ask, like these old ladies, they're like 55 years old, and they're like, what does this mean on my t-shirt? And he's like, it means stay the motherfucking course, girl. And he put it on everyone's shirt, like all the trainers, all the different students that he had, and the people that were there with like group memberships. And out of all the people I have met, like in the fitness industry, even in Muay Thai, I feel like he was extremely influential on me when it came to teaching people and how to speak with just like general population, because he was so influential in the part that he had his bachelor's, he had like his CSC as like collegiate sport certification, and he almost used none of it. He pretty much used his personality and used the and embedded these principles, like saying stay the motherfucking course every single day, like when people were leaving and when ladies would come in, he would look at their shoes and his like, I swear to God, listen, I'll take off money off your membership and you use that same money to get yourself some new shoes because you're not going to stay the course in those. And just using those words over and over again for these ladies, whether it was a professional athlete or like this general population client, like really embedded that in my head. And when I had some of these like really rough days where I felt like maybe I won't come in or whatever it may be, those words would ring in my head, is like, I just got to stay the course, because I see how many people just fall off whenever these things happen. And I've talked about this many of times where the first gym I ever trained at, some of the guys that were my trainers, maybe 3-4 years later, after a fight, they would take a month off or they would take a week off. And then the next fight would be longer. Then the next fight would be longer. And then it turned into 6 months off while I was finishing the fight and getting back in the gym. And then at 3-4 years, talking about that compounding effect over and over again, it really added up. And I actually ended up being the trainer for them over time. And then I was the professional while they were still at that amateur level, even though the same amount of time passed. It seemed like they say they have 4 years of experience. Like you hear this all the time. A guy comes in, it's like, man, I boxed for 3 years. It's not the same 3 years as other people have.
Yeah, that's a good point. And one thing that that you remind me of is like it's all encompassing. So Kobe Bryant, uh, I love the dude. I need to read his book. I haven't read his book yet. Maybe that we want the next books I read. But he has an interview, I think with like Sports Center or HBO, or I don't remember exactly. But he talks about the compound effect, right? And he talks about the importance of like the morning routine. So he would wake up at like 3 or 4 in the morning and train right then for like 2 hours. Then he'd come home, shower, eat, rest, and then he would do so from 4 to 6 he would train, then he'd come home, do that thing, then from 10 to 12 he would train. And then he would come back, do the same thing, and then 3 to 5 train, and then he would do it again from 6 to 8 or whatever. He would essentially have 4 training sessions a day. And the interview was like, that's crazy. Like, why would you do that? It was like, it's just math. Like, if I'm getting up and putting in twice the amount of sessions compared to my goal is to be the best basketball player in the world, then it makes sense. Like, in 1 week, I will do double the amount that most people will do. Then over a month and a year, like, the amount that compounds over time is insane. And so you have to look at it that way. Like, A, the morning routine, like we were saying about is super important. B, the objective that he had was to be the best basketball player in the world, and he was staying the course with that shit for sure. He worked through plenty of personal hardships, as you probably have seen in the media and everything, and he stayed the course in that sense too. And then moving to the next thing, he took a lot of calculated risk. He did a lot of things that a lot of people probably wouldn't. And this goes in with so many top-level fighters, athletes, entrepreneurs, businessmen, whatever it was. If you don't take calculated risks, you're going to just be living in comfort. You're just going to be content. Not that there's anything wrong with content and anything wrong with comfort, but if you're trying to actually like grow as a human, challenge yourself, and really learn about yourself and make a difference in your world and the people around you, then you're going to have to take these calculated risks, overcome this fear, and use fear as like a signal. Like, that's why I started fighting. It was because I had so much fear towards it, right? I was like, why the fuck do I have so much fear towards fighting? I remember all my friends in high school and everything, they had like a fight club after school where everyone would box and this kind of stuff. I was like, that sounds crazy. I would never do anything like that. And then as it progressed, I played baseball in college, and they had like a fight club there, and they would go watch UFC fights and everything. I was like, that sounds I would never fucking fight, right? But then I started contemplating, like, why am I so like afraid of fighting? Why am I trying to stay away from it so much? And then I dug deeper into my like my mental state, and I realized like this fear is just pushing me away from the resistance that I actually need to face. I need to face head on. And it's almost like if something scares you so much, it's almost a sign from the universe to do it. If you've ever read the book The Alchemist, that's like the whole plot of the book. The more the resistance, and the closer you get to your goal, the more resistance there's going to be. And so there's going to be times where you have to just take the leap. And one of the things with entrepreneurship, which relates a lot, is you have to jump before you're ready. You have to take those big fights before you think you're ready. A lot of times people are asking, like, when will I know if I'm ready to fight? You might not ever know if you're ready to fight, but you got to find out. And in order to find out, you just got to fucking do it sometimes. And that shit is scary because it's vulnerable. You put yourself out there, you put your ego out there. And a lot of the times it might not work out the way that you want it to, but the times that it does work out, that's when it's going to pay off. And a lot of people are afraid of failure, and rightfully so. Failure can like really just really sting. It really hurts, and like you can get to a dark place with failure. But if you just research successful people, the amount of failures that they have is insane compared to the average person. They failed, like the whole Michael Jordan quote. He's like, he's missed as many shots, championship shots, as like anybody, and that's why he succeeded, right? And another really good quote that I just read from Robin Schwarma, actually, who wrote the 5 a.m. Club. I've been trying to like articulate failure, and I've always been like, failure is only when you decide it's a failure, and that's what it is. Failure is only when you like identify it as a failure, when you choose to accept it as a failure. Otherwise, it's a lesson. It's a thing that you can use. It's a tool that you can use to better yourself the next time you go down that same path. Now you have more perspective. You have more experience, and you'll be able to plan a new course of action in order to accomplish whatever that goal was. And so I think it's super important. Like, all these things are really important, but a lot of the things that I see that stop people from getting to that next level is just not taking those risks, not jumping before they're ready, and just being afraid of failure.
So many of these things, as you talk about them, they seem so much less scary when you just keep that one thing in mind of staying the course, that you know you're going to keep going until you actually reach the objective. And so all these things, they just kind of work with one another, because you're going to have to take risk at some point. It's nothing's ever going to be 100% certain. And if you do fail, the only thing that you have to rely upon is staying the course, and knowing that that's the type of character that you have. And you can even take pride in that itself. And I feel like taking pride in that itself, my work ethic and staying the course, being someone that has been faced with a lot of hardships, and then had some bad luck in fights and injuries and things like that, and still keeping going right after, and never really questioning it. Just the next day, all right, I got to get back in there. I've talked about this when I had that a rough year, and I keep referencing it, and I do this a lot. It's almost, again, like a reminder to myself that if I didn't go back to the gym, we just did the why video on YouTube that we released, which is ridiculous. If you haven't watched it, you can go to my YouTube channel. It's like, why even fight, or why even train Muay Thai? And Sean and I go over all the reasons why you should train Muay Thai, and how beneficial it is, and why like how our whys have changed. And I didn't want to be in the gym. It was like my body was falling apart. My mind just wasn't aligned with it anymore. It wasn't trusting my body. So even when it healed, like when my hand healed over and it wasn't broken, I had a hard time trusting it. It was almost like disconnected from the rest of my body to make impact the way that it should, or like it used to. And the only thing that connected the two back together was going back to the gym and allowing my heart and my passion for the sport to keep it going. So the mind and the body realign themselves together once again.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, right? I mean, like none of this is easy what we're saying, but we're also talking about being an elite level, being a champion in the aspects of life that you want to be, and it's going to come with these blocks of resistance, these challenges, these injuries, your body breaking down, your mind breaking down, and everything around you seemingly to break down. And like if anyone's been, if you're a fighter and you've been in the game long enough, you would have dealt with these dark places where you question like life, and even and just in life, like you don't even need to be a fighter, right? I'm sure that everyone has hit this point in their life where shit kind of hits the fan, doesn't go their way, and it's really easy to just be like, you know what, maybe this isn't for me, maybe I should change directions. But one of the key aspects that make champions is adaptation and being able to just roll with the punches. And like this is this will be able to roll right into the next tip, which is the fifth tip, which is adapt as you grow. Like adapt to all the challenges that are inevitable. Like all these, if you want to grow, if you want to actually be a champion, then you got to accept the fact that there's going to be plenty of challenges just like punching you in the face over and over again. You just have to learn how to slip, dodge, bob, weave, and just roll with them as much as you can, because they're going to happen. It's going to happen. And like staying the course, like you were saying, and just having tunnel vision. Like you really just have to like be super stubborn in accomplishing your goals, and just like not take no for an answer. And I mean, Liz can be one to back me up with this. Like I'm stubborn as fuck. Like I have something I want to do. I'm gonna do it. And like no one's gonna tell me otherwise. No one's gonna stop me if it's something that I'm really that much had that much belief in. And so I think it's really important to know that like adaptation and being able to persist and persevere over all of these challenges, all over these perceived failures that might seem like failures when you take these calculated risks, I think is super important for the long run if you want to become this champion version of yourself.
And growth, because just looking in the comments, we had people talk about taking weeks off after or losing momentum whenever they get a little bit hurt, and just not showing up to the gym, in fear of like getting more hurt. And the latest comment, for me, failure isn't the issue, but permanent damage to the body is my fear. And exactly what you're talking about, adaptation is, like these things over time most likely will happen to you. So if you just stop showing up, just based on that one fear, then you're allowing it to win already, rather than focusing on how you can adapt. And it's like me. After I got injured, I was talking about just running my body into the ground. And I gave myself this like limitation of like, okay, I'll probably be like 31, 32 by the time my body just completely falls apart and I can't anymore. And I was saying, I'm going to run this bitch into the ground, pretty much go as hard as I can until it just won't function the way it needs to function. Until I had 3 of these injuries in a row. And I go, like, I literally can't keep doing this. I can't keep running my body into the ground like this without actually taking care of it. And then once I adapted by researching, by looking at these, we talk about these all the time, PT Vitals on Instagram, like all these different the rehab guys. There's so many tools now. You see guys in the light heavyweight division right now. There's a 200 in the 205 division. There's a 45-year-old number 1 contender in the division right now. And then you had the Polish Hammer, who was 1-4, who just became the champion and is coming off of a winning streak. What happened there? These are guys that adapt, and over time, they're able to fight at later ages, and that's because of sports science. That's because people are actually studying how to rehab the body and how to extend the life of their career. And that's exactly what I did, is how can I actually become more mobile, more flexible? And these injuries happen because I wasn't taking care of that. And now not only have I healed up the injuries and rehab them, but I've actually gotten my body to perform better because I am more mobile. I am more flexible. I am taking care of my strength and conditioning, working with Don, studying on my own, and just constantly adding to it. Now, I don't feel like I'm running my body into the ground anymore. I actually feel like I can go past that limited number that I once set after adapting.
Adapt or die, right? That's just like the name of the game, because otherwise you just be stagnant. You just be plateaued the entire time. And times are changing. Times are constantly changing, especially right now. And so you have to learn how to roll with the punches. Otherwise, it's going to be a long, it's going to be a long grind one way or another, but it's going to be a little bit more of a happier grind if you actually learn how to adapt. So hopefully these tips give you some insights on like how we're able to just translate our training into our life, how we're able to translate our mindsets from training into our lives, and just a lot of the habits and all that kind of stuff. And we'd love to hear your input. So if you're listening to this podcast via Spotify or iTunes or Stitcher, make sure you reach out to us on any of our social media channels and let us know. We love talking about, like, obviously we're the Muay Thai guys. We talk about Muay Thai, but it's so much more than that. It's so much more than just a martial art. It is a lifestyle, and it's a way to better yourself in all aspects of your life. So if any of our points or any of our tips are resonating, please let us know. It's always helps us just stay excited, stay encouraged about doing these podcasts. And yeah, it's always just good hearing feedback and everything as well. So thanks for that. And then we'll do a Q&A. But before we do that, Paul, what's been going on with you? What's on the schedule, I guess you could say? You say you're back into training camp. Well, what's that all about?
Well, I'm excited to talk about it. But I do want to leave everyone with one last thing, and that would be to remember that in all these principles, if you feel like you're hearing some of them and then like things are popping up in your head where you're like, oh, well, but that other people stop at that point where they come up with this excuse, or they hear this like, but and they actually make it happen, or they stay the course, they get injured, and then they keep going. So at any point where you feel like you're going through a bad time and you need to stop, just remember there are people out there that won't. And at the end of the day, that's what makes the difference between those that I feel like succeed and those that don't. And what we talked about in the beginning is that we've met a ton of people throughout life, like amazing fathers, amazing Muay Thai champions, amazing entrepreneurs. And all of them have that one thing in common. It's like people that are like, oh, but I got personal stuff going on in my life. Like I can't see my kid, you know, or I got personal stuff going on in my life. I can't get to training, all these things. And then there's another person that we have met that has said the same exact thing. It's like, man, I was really going through some really hard personal struggles, but man, the most important thing to me is my kid. Oh, the one thing I know, like you said, I wake up in the morning. If I get my routine in, if I get my training in, I'm a better person for it. So there are people, it's just two different types of mindsets, and you're both just as physically capable. It's just about flipping that switch in your head and like forming it in a way that actually works for you.
Yeah, it's all in the mind. I mean, like you said, oh, I want to do this, but if there is a but, and there almost always is a but, just saying but a lot now, but there's always a but, and then there's always a reason or excuse, right? But after you say your reason or excuse, now what? Do you let that win? You're like, this is the excuse wins, that's just the name of the game. Or you'd be like, I want to become a professional fighter, but I don't have the time to do it. So I'm going to do this to make up for that. Now you have to try to become like a detective or like a surgeon. You have to like figure this shit out. Like, all right, how do I actually like use this excuse to my advantage? How do I work around it and actually benefit myself? So this way, this is no longer an excuse. And if anything, it's a reinforcement behind what I'm doing. And so there's two people who use the excuse as an excuse, and people who use the excuse as a way to overcome and adapt. And so hopefully you're the latter. But yeah, like I was saying, just reach out. But yeah, now that you got that off, we got some questions coming in, I believe. But before we get to the questions, yeah, give us a little life update, training update. What's going on?
Routine's going well. Speaking of a morning routine, I feel like my day-to-day routine is what's been really, really strong right now. And that's, I feel like I'm doing all the things of a professional athlete, and I feel like I'm getting like good coaching, 2 sessions a day. Like I said, we get up to 10 rounds on the pads, up to 16 rounds on the bag. And
Talk
that's
about a compound effect right there, right? Most people are doing 3 rounds on the pads. You're doing 5 twice a day. That adds up.
That's what I mean is I felt like you're like, oh, 5 rounds, that's gonna burn you out, you know, like I would think about that, and especially twice a day, especially when you're doing a ton of kicks in between. And no, now instead I feel like a machine when it comes to kicks. When we do sets of like 50 and we do multiple sets, or we do 60 kicks from a drill and we do that 3 times through, which is almost 200 kicks, my body does it and I don't feel exhausted at the end. Like I feel like I can keep fighting. So now bringing that into the ring, it's really exciting. We've been really trying to get matchups, and I was looking to fight on Super Champ in Bangkok, but after beating Dieselek, they are unlikely to give me a matchup now. Because there are some fighters, they're just not as skilled, so they don't feel like they should put anyone up to lose, which I think is silly, because then you sometimes see the matchups that they do with the Iranians, and they'll let them get slaughtered every other week. But when it comes to their own guys, they're a little bit more protected, even though they're more experienced. So that's part of the fight game for people that don't know. Like a lot of these shows like Thai Fight and these Bangkok shows, the TV shows, there's a reason why you don't always see like bigger names on them. One, because they want to fight for more money, but 2, also because there seems to be like a favor to one side or the other. And because of that, we might have to go straight to Thai Fight. Unless I can find a northern region, like a regional title here in Thailand in the north. We're working on that. If not, then it looks like I'll be going straight to Thai Fight to fight one of their top guys. I think he's ranked like number 3 in WBC, and we'll be taking that fight if the northern title doesn't come up. And I'm pretty excited to do that because I feel like I have a really good team here. Eddie and I flow really well. I feel like, it's funny. I really enjoy people that are a certain way, but when they look at others, they look at what they need rather than like giving their own advice based on what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like me and him had a similar style. Like I wanted to be in your face. I wanted to be that kind of fighter. And it's really hard to change your style. So coming to a place where his style was like kind of like similar in mindset, at least, for him to look at me like, dude, don't do that. Like, or like, don't do what I do either. Like this is what you do that's most annoying. Like do this annoying shit over and over again. And I feel like I'm really transforming my style. And I'm looking for you to get over here because there's plenty of opportunities for these super champ fights as well.
Yeah, I watched Muay Hardcore last night, and then I went into a rabbit hole of just watching Muay Thai fights last night. It was a lot of fun. I haven't done that for a little while, and so I watched a bunch of Super Champ fights, some Muay Hardcore fights, then I watched a lot of Danny Bill fights because Lawrence Kenshin just came out with a video of him, and like I realized I watched like one fight of Danny Bill and I knew who he was, but until I watched his like actually watch his fights, like dude, the guy is just incredible. Like, oh man, it's just amazing. Just like it doesn't even make sense. Like he's able to fight the way he fights. So I was just watching all of his fights, and then like seeing Super Champ and everything. I'm like, fuck yeah, I can like. I saw some of the matchups. I'm like, damn, like I could definitely fuck that one guy up, and the other guy who's fucking that one guy up, I could probably fuck up too. You know, so like I'm excited about the prospect of getting back into a steady flow of training. Yeah, and just getting back on fighting, man, and seeing the guys at Powerhouse. I know 3 guys I think are fighting tonight on a Super Champ. I'm definitely going to tune in to watch that to see how they do. But yeah, in the meantime, I'm just trying to really talk about setting a foundation. I'm trying to set a foundation for my business and for work, so this way when I move to Phuket, I'll be able to really just bite down on my mouth guard and focus on training and fighting and give that my all. And so yeah, I can't wait, man. I can't fucking wait.
That'll be sick.
Yeah,
I'll be looking forward to doing pictures and videos and just kind of grinding at it together.
Yeah, it's just going to be nice just to the environment, I'm sure, is just like really conducive to productivity there, to just getting the most out of you can out of every day. And so I'm super pumped about that. So we'll go into a couple questions to finish off. We got one from William Brewster. How many miles you run every day, Paul?
I stopped running. I do the conditioning routine that I get sent from Don, which changes every single month. So it'll be HIIT training, whatever it may be. But I do about 20 minutes on the Airdyne every day, and that's pretty much it. When I was running pretty much 10K a day, and I feel like if I was like a thicker athlete or someone that needs to lose weight, that's what I would do. I would do 10K a day, but I'm sitting at like no body fat right now. I weigh like 185 pounds soaking wet, so I can't be losing any more weight.
Cool. I do about 3 to 5K a day, and it just depends on the day. Some days I'll run closer to 10K, maybe like once a week. But generally speaking, like my morning routine, like I was saying, is I go out for like sometimes I don't even track how long or how far I'm running. I just track the time. And so I usually just do like 30 minutes of running per day, give or take. When I'm training for a fight, my things change. I do some more sprints. I do some Don Heatrick stuff. But right now I'm just trying to like maintain a good aerobic base. And I enjoy running, listen to podcasts while I'm running and some music and stuff. And so, yeah, I make sure to get at least like 20 to 30 minutes in a day. Leslie wants to know, is running and jumping rope twice a day a good idea? I'm thinking it's going to help my stamina, and shin conditioning along with my heavy bag workouts. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, 100%, especially if you're building it up. And I've talked about this many of times. You can't always take my advice. You have to look at yourself specifically, because I feel like genetically I have a good aerobic base. I can get off the couch and I can run long distance, and all these things are pretty easy for me. But I think the running twice a day and jumping rope will definitely help with the shin conditioning as well, and just to build up that aerobic base. And then you can become more specific and work on the sprints and everything else once you're already fit.
Boom. Yeah, pretty much well said. So we'll just go to the next question. Chris Lena, thanks for everything you guys do. What is the current state of Muay Thai right now? Or Muay Thai fights still happening? And how does someone who's starting from the bottom compete right now? So from what I can tell, in Thailand, fights are happening, but they're at a high level. They're at a level where you need around like, what would you say, like 20 fights usually is like the like kind of like cutoff point that they allow people to fight in like Super Champ and stuff?
Well, you can have less, and I see some of the shows have been even lower level right now just because there's less competition, but that's very low on the card. And but other than that, it has to be televised shows because there's not as big of a crowd. So most of the time it is televised shows, so it is higher level. I would say at least 10 fights.
And then I know Triumphant just had, I think, fights right now as we're doing this down in Mexico. Um, there might be some smokers going on, but I just know it's hard for us to know because we live in Thailand, and so we're in this like little bubble here in Thailand. And yeah, we are in the online Muay Thai community, and we kind of can see what's going on from the outside, but not being there, it's hard to know exactly. From what I can tell, a lot of gyms are being closed down right now because of the lockdowns, especially in Europe and the US and Canada. And so I would imagine that there's not a lot of fights going on at all, if any. And so right now, as someone who's just starting from the bottom to compete right now, this is the perfect time to just build a really solid foundation and to build the self-discipline that you need for the long run, right? So, Chris, if you're in this for a while, if your long-term goal is to like compete 10, 20, 30, become a professional, whatever it is, right now it's a really good time to just fine-tune the skills that you have and really just build and on top of the foundation that you're trying to essentially start off with. So like really getting a good idea of your stance, your footwork, your defense, shadow boxing and heavy bag work. I mean, when I first started training Muay Thai, like I had training partners and a coach, right? But I would still say like 80% of my training was by myself. It was a heavy bag, it was shadow boxing, it was running, it was strength and conditioning. And then the other 20% was pad work and sparring. So right now, with the lack of training options, you really just have to just dedicate yourself to training yourself. You have to be your own best coach, your own best training partner right now. And if you're able to do that, then when gyms open back up, when fights start happening again, then you'll be able to jump right into it without missing a beat. And you'll probably be ahead of most people who are starting in the same position.
Yeah, it's killer advice because like throughout this entire quarantine, a lot of people got out of shape. So once these shows do pop up and the tournaments are coming up, Chad actually had like the IKF
Yeah, I saw that.
championships recently. So things do pop up, and if you're ahead of the competition already because you are staying in shape, you'll be the first one to get in there and to work and probably have an advantage over the competition. Also here in the north, they are starting some local stadium fights, like Taipei's having a weekly stadium fight. The thing is, in Thailand, why there's only like higher level fights and live TV fights is because there's no tourism to sell the tickets to make money for the local stadiums. So pretty much the only way to make money on Muay Thai is to have sponsors and have the TV shows.
Mhm. Cool. So Chuck wants to know, how long did it take you to wrap your fighters' hands, like to learn how to wrap them for a fight? Me personally, I'm not sure if I've ever actually wrapped someone's hands for a fight. Usually the Thais are doing it for me because there's a specific way that the Thais do it where they fucking create bricks out of your hands. And then in the US, I would always like it'd be me and my coach usually with the other fighters and stuff. So I've never really wrapped people's hands. Have you, Paul?
Yeah, back home, when I was coaching fighters and bringing them to events or tournaments, then I would wrap hands. I'm definitely out of practice now, but I learned by having my coach show me. Then, like, almost like I would shadow him. Then the second time, he would kind of shadow me, allow it, like, kind of guiding me through it. And then, if you're actually going to do it for a fighter, I would probably practice
Practice for sure.
like once or twice. So just know you're going to eat like $10 worth of gauze and tape and things like that, and practice because it's a skill, and it's, I think, worth investing in, especially if you're a trainer or a coach. Here in Thailand, it's a lot different.
There's not as
And
many regulations to how to wrap your hands here.
yeah, and the Thai fighters and the Thai trainers are really good at doing it, and especially with so much tape, I haven't felt comfortable doing it. I wrapped the hands of one fighter that already had a brick made. So what you'll see here is it's almost like a brick pad that goes around your hand on the front of your knuckles, and then the gauze goes to kind of hold it down, and then the rest of the tape just to go over the gauze. But the gauze is not there to protect you; it's just to kind of hold down the tape in the right place. But after, you can pull off the whole knuckle pad and the hand covering. So the only time I wrapped hands is when someone already had like that pad, and then I just wrapped the actual hand like the way I would a regular hand wrap back home.
Boom. So we got two more questions, and that's what we'll do. Two more questions. William Brewster. How can I condition for my arms? I have a plate in my arm and it hurts when I get hit because of my plate. Hey,
This
me
is for
too.
you.
Yeah, I got my left arm. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'm not sure if you can see it, but I have a plate right here. I had to get it all stapled up and everything. I have 2 screws and a plate in my left arm because I broke it in a fight, which I won. And it took me quite a while. I don't know how recent your surgery was to get the plate in your arm and everything, but it took me like a good 18 plus months to feel comfortable sparring and stuff again with it without it causing too much pain. That being said, it still causes me pain every now and then if it gets hit the right way. And also I can't do like bicep curls or muscle ups or like certain movements because of the way that the plate kind of just like messes up my arm. I don't know if it like scratches against the bone or the muscle or whatever. But when it comes to just conditioning your arms, I mean, sparring. I mean, just sparring and getting better with the blocking. So like me personally, when I broke my arm, it's because when I blocked my, let's see if I can show this on YouTube. I blocked it at an angle like this. So the kick came straight down onto it. Right. And so I only had one bone protecting it. Whereas if I kind of have it closer to my body, my body is adding some added resistance towards it, and B, I have both of my bones being hit as opposed to just one bone. And so the blocking and the actual technique of the blocking is going to help with relieving some of the pain. If I tend to block with my arm out more of an out angle, then my arm hurts a lot more. If I'm nice and tight, if I'm in and I'm blocking, then it's not going to hurt nearly as much. Conditioning, I'm not sure. Like I said, there's much you can do for it besides like maybe lifting weights to help build up that bone density, but and eating a lot of calcium and shit. But other than that, that's all I got.
Yeah, I would focus on the supplements when it comes to that part. And when it comes to actually conditioning it, I would focus more on being evasive rather than trying to make it stronger. It's like one of those things is like, how do I make my brain better against punches? Is like, just try to avoid them altogether. And that's what it comes to when it comes to those body kicks. If they're hitting you on that part of the arm, it's likely that you can also lean back or evade or slide back. So I would work on more evasive maneuvers so you don't have to take that damage in the first place. It's something that I can actually relate to right now because I've had really bad tennis elbow, and sparring with Khalil, I can't block his punches. He punches so heavy that when it punches into my arm, especially if it's at the wrist area and it snaps my arm back, it just aggravates the tennis elbow really, really bad. And it's almost like I lose strength in my arm because my elbow just no longer wants to flex up. And resisting against the punch is too much. It's too heavy. So I have just completely changed to, oh, well, I'm just not going to block anymore. I'm going to evade it altogether because taking the punch itself is still damaging even when you're blocking it, just like the kick is damaging when you're blocking it. So adapting to a more adapting to a more evasive style.
That's exactly what I did actually. So after I broke my arm, I was like, I should learn how to lean back a little bit more. And ever since then, I've just been leaning back that much more. And then we got the last question from Amy. Any advice for help to stay on track with fitness and nutrition without the support of those around you, especially if they're trying to derail your nutrition or fitness goals?
I would take it as a challenge. That's always how I did in the first place. Is what's funny is my family wanted me to go to the gym and they wanted me to like really get into athletics. And then as soon as I did and I became obsessed over it, they flipped the script like, why are you at the gym so much? And like, hey, like have fun, just like eat with us. So like while I have my meal prep and things like that. It's funny how things flip and they're like, oh, you should do this, you do it. And all of this and they're like, too much. So it's not fun for us. And it could be frustrating, but I would literally use it as a challenge. Like, okay, so I'm not like the rest of you guys. Like you can connect on other levels, but these are my goals. I feel like I've had to kind of do that over again, especially if you're not surrounded by the people that share those goals with you. So I wouldn't get mad. Like, I wouldn't expect them to obtain your lifestyle, but then also they shouldn't expect you to kind of lower your standards because of theirs.
I think that's a really good point, right? Is like to take it as a challenge and prove motherfuckers wrong. I get a lot of motivation off of that, and just being different than most people, right? That's a good motivation as well. But I believe it's also important to surround yourself with people who are on the same page as you. And right now, it can be a little bit difficult with the amount of just uncertainty in the world and not knowing whether to go to the gym or not, and how to find like this right group. But that's where like social media, as much as social media can be annoying, it could also be a really beautiful thing if you have the right Facebook groups to be a part of, if you have the right communities to be a part of, and people are all in it at the same time. So like my Fighter's Body community, right? It's all about health, fitness, nutrition, and training and fighting. And everyone in there is so supportive of one another. And everyone in there is also dealing with some type of negativity or some type of bad environment around them. And they're trying to push that away and just focus on the positive energy, the positive environment. And so by surrounding yourself online, that's an important thing. And also by surrounding yourself like mentally. So like reading books on motivation, reading books on health, nutrition, and all this kind of stuff, and just immersing yourself in it is going to help you. You're being happy by like constantly pursuing your goals, feeling better about yourself, getting in good shape. And meanwhile, they're just sitting on the couch, not doing shit, feeling sorry for themselves. They're going to feel bad about you being good. And so they're going to want to, misery loves company, right? And so you just got to keep that in mind as well, is that all these projections that people are putting onto you and trying to derail you of, it's just their own issue, their own self-image issues and everything.
You're good now. You're good now. And
Okay.
actually, you came back at a really good time. Like, you came back making a really strong final point that kind of flowed from the beginning anyways. So
Cool.
I think people really got the idea.
Sweet. All right. So yeah, hopefully this answered your questions and everything. I really appreciate you all listening in. We went a little bit overtime today, but it's all good. It's Sunday morning. We got some time to kill. But yeah, feel free to reach out. Let us know if you ever have any specific topics that you'd like us to discuss. I've been having fun interacting with fans on Facebook and Instagram recently. So if you have any thoughts or questions, feel free to reach out. And Paul, any last touches you want to get to before we bounce out?
No, thank you guys so much for listening. Again, we're going to be back at it next week. We'll make sure that you sign up for our emails, because then we can send it out to you, or you follow us on social media. We usually have reminders how to set the reminder on YouTube so you can watch the live show. But otherwise, subscribe on iTunes to Muay Thai Guys podcast and leave a review so we can use your name and give you a shout out in the next one.
Well said. All right, guys. Thanks so much. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.